What's up, guys? Coach Tony from Bomvex Strength, and today I'm going to talk about the 2-to-1 pull-to-push ratio concept, which is an idea in strength training that says that you should do twice as many upper back exercises as you do pressing exercises, so exercises for your chest or your shoulders like bench press, push-ups, etc. And the idea behind the 2-to-1 pull-to-push ratio is that pulling exercises, so exercises like rows, lat pull-downs, and pull-ups, are inherently good for shoulder health, and that exercises that are pressing exercises like bench presses and overhead presses are inherently bad for shoulder health. And we can't make those simplified generalizations that, these are good and these are bad. That's not how it works. But the other idea behind it is that the muscles on the back of the shoulder, so your rhomboids, your lats, your rear delts, those things stabilize the shoulder joint and the shoulder blade. So for example, when we bench press, we use our upper back muscles to pull our shoulder blades back and down and stabilize our shoulder joint so we can bench press as much weight as possible. That's a great idea while bench pressing, but the idea of doing all these upper back exercises to undo all the pressing exercises is kind of a misnomer, because if you think about the mechanics of the shoulder blade and the humerus when you're doing upper back exercises, they're actually exactly the same as when you set up to bench press or when you set up to squat. And there's a lot of shoulder blades being pulled together and pulled down and keeping your chest up. And this position is seen all over the place in powerlifting. And the one movement of the upper body that is often left out when we're powerlifting is reaching movements. So literally the exact opposite of rows and lat pull downs is actually getting the arms reaching forward by getting that shoulder blade to protract, so to move out and around our rib cage. That can happen in a horizontal fashion, like during a push-up. It can happen in a vertical fashion, like during a landmine press. So I'm going to show you today some of the mechanics of pressing exercises that are probably actually better for building up shoulder mobility and shoulder health than doing more upper back exercises. Because when we do a lot of upper back exercises, we're strengthening those muscles that do stabilize the shoulder blade, but in a similar fashion to when we do all our pressing exercises and all our squat variations. So if I'm doing a rowing exercise, like a one-arm kettlebell row here, what I'm doing is I'm taking my shoulder blade and I'm moving it to the middle of my back as I move my arm closer to my body. So I'm strengthening the muscles in the upper back by bringing that shoulder blade to the middle of my rib cage and down. And again, when I do that all the time, what I tend to lose is the ability for my shoulder blade to go around and up my rib cage, which is necessary for me to reach up overhead. When I need to get up overhead, it's not just my arm that's moving, my shoulder blade has to move along with it. So if all I'm doing for shoulder health is more upper back exercises that pull the shoulder blades down and back, that's not going to help me. That's just kind of doubling down on all the pressing exercises that I already do. So in order for me to improve my shoulder motion via upper back exercises, I need to really focus on the eccentric portion of the movement. So when I'm lowering the weight down on a row, or when I'm reaching up on a lat pull down or a pull up, because that's where I'm going to get that extra shoulder blade motion that's going to help my shoulder health overall. So if I'm doing a one-arm row, I need to make sure that I'm not locking my shoulder blade down and back and just moving my arm without moving the shoulder blade. I need to pull that shoulder blade to the middle of my back on the way up, but on the way down, I need to be able to reach my arm down and let my shoulder blade wrap around my rib cage so that I'm actually getting that shoulder blade motion that we're striving for in the first place, because that's what leads to better shoulder function, is having a shoulder blade that glides along the rib cage nicely. It's not just stuck in one position. So if I'm doing upper back exercises in order to improve shoulder health, I got to make sure that I get that full retraction of my shoulder blade on the concentric, and that I get full protraction of the shoulder blade on the eccentric, so allowing that shoulder blade to glide around the rib cage. And that's just talking about the pulling exercises, right? So for that 2-to-1 pull-to-push ratio to have any sort of validity, it's all about the execution of the exercise. If we're just doing upper back exercises without a lot of shoulder blade motion, then the 2-to-1 pull-to-push ratio is not only not true, but it could be actually counterproductive to what we're trying to do. On the other hand, if you want to improve your shoulder blade function, if you want to improve your shoulder mobility overall, it's a good idea to include pressing exercises that allow your shoulder blade to move and allow a reaching component to it. So when we bench press, whether it's with a barbell or a dumbbell, if we're doing dips, if we're doing exercises like that, we want a fixed shoulder blade position. We do not want our shoulder blades to move because that's going to allow us to lift the most weight with that exercise. However, it's a good idea to sprinkle in some pressing movements where you're allowing the shoulder blade to move. Landmine press is a classic example. So landmine press kind of lives somewhere between a horizontal and a vertical press. It's somewhere right in the middle. But by doing a landmine press, I can move my shoulder blade around the rib cage as I press by kind of leaning my body into it. I don't want to stay in one spot, pack the shoulder down, and just move my arm. I want to allow my arm and my shoulder blade to work together. And this can really strengthen the muscles around the shoulder blade that allow it to move freely. So landmine press is a great option. And just a simple push-up is another great option. Push-ups executed well are one of the best exercises for shoulder function that I've ever found in all my years of lifting and coaching. So what we'll often see with push-ups is people will lock their shoulder blades into position, just like a bench press, and then just move their arms. So no motion of my shoulder blade along my rib cage. And that's not going to help. That's, again, just doubling down on that rigid shoulder position. What you want to do when you do push-ups is that at the top of your push-up, you want to start with your shoulder blades fully pushed apart. So if you think you're at the top of your push-up, think again, try to push a little further apart so that your upper back kind of rounds out and your shoulder blades are fully spread apart. That's your starting position. Then as you go down to the floor on your push-up, you're going to slowly let your shoulder blades come together so that by the time your chest is on the ground, they're fully pinched together. And then as I press up, I'm going to go back to that fully protracted position. I'm trying to lock out my push-up like I'm trying to make a turtle shell with my back. So shoulder blades all the way together on the way down, all the way apart on the way up. And just like the landmine press, that's going to strengthen all those muscles around my shoulder blade to allow them to move nicely. So the whole point is that the 2-to-1 pull-to-push ratio in the idea of trying to improve your shoulder health is not quite that simple. It's in the execution of the pulling exercises. And in fact, there are a lot of pressing exercises that might be a better option for improving shoulder health than just adding more volume for pulling exercises. So the devil's in the details. And if you find yourself not improving your shoulder motion or your shoulder health by doing more upper back exercises, try sprinkling in more pressing exercises that allow for a reach through the movement.